I can't hear anyone. Can they hear me?
I think Ann is muted.
Okay.
Ann is muted, yeah.
I think Ann's going to kick us off, so we'll. I'm here,
Yeah,
and so
she's muted, Senator. Thank you for being here, Senator.
oh, of course, of course, of course. This is. I wish we could all be in person, but this is the next best thing. So I'm happy to do it.
Thank you, Senator Rosen, and we appreciate your time. I'd love to open up with any comments you would like to make to our chamber members.
Well, Ann, I want to thank you for, I know you're going to moderate today. I want to thank the chamber, everybody who took the time, is taking the time to be on today's call. First off, I say this at the beginning of every call that I'm on. I want to be sure that you are safe, that you are healthy, that your loved ones are safe and healthy, and let's hope we keep it that way, that's for sure, because it's such an uncertain time for everyone. I know that Nevada, we are smart, we are tough, we've gone through a recession down south here. We went through, unfortunately, one October. We're going through a pandemic, but I know how Nevadans feel about their state, about their communities, and I think that we'll get through even stronger. And so, of course, I'm a member of the Small Business Committee, and I am supporting all of our small businesses. We're reaching out to chambers up and down the state, trying to bring resources. But I do want to make this, I just got an announcement first thing when I woke up this morning. Maybe some of you have seen it. There were restrictions on gaming businesses, old restrictions from the 1990s. If you made 30% or more of your revenue from gaming, you couldn't apply for PPP or disaster loans. They spoke with them through my committee. They raised it up to 50%, and I continue to call Secretary Mnuchin, administrator of the SBA, Carranza, work with Marco Rubio on my small business committee, and so many others. And this morning, they lifted the restrictions on gaming to apply for those PPP loans. So I'm thrilled about that. All of our small gaming operators, restaurants, bars, convenience stores, gas stations, whatever, now they'll be able to apply. We're going to work on permanent legislative fix for other types of SBA loans, but that is really good news today for people up and down the state. And so really, my team and I were just working around the clock, like all of you, to be sure that Nevadans get the right answers, the best answers they can to weather the storm, and then think about proactively what we're going to do in any future bills, what we need to do going forward. So I do want to say that I have on my website launched a small business portal. If you go to rosen.senate.gov, you will find not just only a COVID-19 page with multiple links and resources, FAQs, all of that there. You will find a specific link for the SBA, everything that we know. We're working. Welcome, Joe. You're going to meet Joe in a minute. He's fantastic, our SBA director for Nevada. And we're updating it as a central point of contact on our website daily. To date, our office, we've had over 350, 400 calls. We've been helping all of these businesses get what they need.
Talking to these guys, just give me some volume.
Oh, somebody I think needs to go on mute.
Yeah.
And honestly, a few weeks ago, I had 14,000 emails. My staff is working on those all the time, but some of those questions directly about PPP. Another thing that I'm very excited to talk to you about today is that I was just recently appointed the only member of the Nevada delegation to the White House. There's a bipartisan, bicameral task force. It's called the White House Opening Up America Again Congressional Group. And so this is how we're going to help protect Nevada. My plan, I'm going to be speaking with the delegation, the governor today, is to get information from the rest of the federal delegation on what they're hearing from their districts, their phone calls on our top priorities. I'm going to be speaking with the governor about his top priorities. We've worked through League of Cities to reach out. We've reached out today to all of our mayors, and through NACO, the counties, to see what the counties need. And so I'm going to create a blueprint for Nevada's recovery, that I'm going to be bringing to the White House. Our next call is next week. Some of those things that are important for Nevada will be important for communities all around the country. They're not so different, but some things will be specific for Nevada, and I am very proud to be part of that. And you know, Nevada, I just want to say before I talk a little bit more about Nevada that I just signed on to a letter that's going to allow the C6 organizations to have access to PPP as well. So that's going to help you too, and we're going to move forward with that. And I don't have to tell any of you, because of the footprint of Nevada, the kinds of things that spur our economy, we're going to be one of the hardest states hit by the coronavirus crisis. So we not only have to react to this pandemic, but we have to plan for what's going forward. That's why your voice helping me on this task force collaborative effort, building our plans, is going to make such a difference, because we have to get to a point where we can safely reopen our economy. First thing we have to do, of course, make sure we have the healthcare capacity to deal with what's going on. God forbid anyone you know or love gets sick. We want there to be the resources that we need to take care of you. We have to increase our testing capability to see if you have COVID or not, because you could go to the hospital and you might have bronchitis, which is a totally different treatment than what they might do for COVID. So they need to take care of those acute cases. We need to have those serum tests that you hear about. Those are the ones to see if you have the antibodies. What does it mean if you have the antibodies for going back out, going back to work? We need to have ways that we do that contact tracing. We need to be sure that not just our first responders, medical workers, essential workers, like in the grocery stores, et cetera, have those personal protective equipment, but everyone going back to work. It's going to be very important. And so those are the first things we're going to work on. And so we have to understand that any way we reopen has to go in compliance with our medical experts and our science, because any life, all life is precious. The only people you can't replace, only things you can't replace in this life are the ones that you love. We're going to try to protect lives and try to promote our livelihoods. That is our challenge. That's what we have to rise to. And so, like I said, my team, we're just working around the clock, Washington, Northern Nevada, Southern Nevada, with our small business owners, all of our workers, every single industry in any capacity that we can, to be sure that we weather this storm. And we're here to give you the tools that you need, working with Joe at the SBA, and of course we have so many other needs as well. And so I'm going to introduce Joe. Joe Amato is he is appointed Nevada's District Director in 2017 of the SBA. We are very lucky to have him. He has just, I have to applaud Joe, because he gives out his personal email to everyone, and he answers all of those emails. I do not know when Joe sleeps, but he has really been working tirelessly for all of small business. He has such a passion to be sure that everyone gets what they need. He's a former executive. He's a business leader. He gets it. And so, Joe, I just am grateful for you. So are all of we. I know that your challenge is everything's happening so fast, is just trying to keep up with the volume. But I'm going to turn it over to you to make a few remarks, and appreciate all that you've been doing on small business behalf.
We're trying to find Joe. And Senator, first of all, I want to just congratulate you on all the accomplishments you've enabled for Nevada. And thank you so much for participating today with us. I will get to questions as soon as we can find Joe and have him say hello to us all. We've been privileged to be able to speak to Joe a number of times. He's been terrific about answering questions. And to your point, he's done a phenomenal job in terms of giving out his phone number, his cell phone number, his email, and he responds immediately. So we're very lucky to have him here in Nevada.
I don't know. He must have a million hands. I don't know how he does it, because you send him an email, you're right, quickly he responds. He's getting through all of those. He really, as just dug in with all of his heart and soul. It's just everything's happening so fast, along with a lot of other things, in the unemployment insurance, trying to get the loans. COVID has hit us so quickly, so fast and furious, that just the glut. It's not that people don't want to give service, but when you have thousands of people calling every day, like for unemployment, or even the small business, 99.9% of business in Nevada is small business. It is really the backbone for Nevada. And so I think that once we get through this initial kind of tsunami, then we'll be able to level out and see what some of the next challenges we have are, the opportunities that we have to grow or change things. I like to see that some of those disparities that we might have been exposed because of this are opportunities for us to thrive in the future. And we'll see if Joe's on there. Otherwise, we can go ahead and go to some questions.
Senator, we've just been advised that he's not able to be on the call. So
Okay.
I will proceed with questions for you. And I know our listeners are very anxious to hear from you.
You might
Let me
see
start with
a second. I'm just going to say this. You may see me writing because since I can't see everyone, I want to make sure I get all the questions. So
sure. Okay.
that and let you know if I'm listening. It's not always as
no problem. Thank you. Let me start out. First of all, I'll mention that we got so many questions from our members. I distilled them down to questions that I hope your answers will be helpful to the most number of people on the call today. Let me start with the most important. Do you think the most recent $484 billion interim funding bill will be enough to provide aid to all the small businesses that need financial assistance?
Well, I think that we need to do everything we can to support our small businesses. We pushed hard for additional PPP funding. I was happy to see that just passed. We're pushing hard. We pushed hard for additional funding for those EIDL loans, or the grants that I guess they're the EIDL. They're not EIDL. They're the G after the I. The grants and the loans. We pushed hard for all of that. And this direct assistance is really going to go to small business, to hospitals, to healthcare providers. And one of the things that I'm especially proud of is that out of the $310 billion in the new PPP funding, about $60 billion was set aside in a way that community banks, credit unions, minority institutions, those CDFIs, those community development financial institutions, that they will be able to help for rural communities, for our minority, our veterans, women-owned businesses. Often these smaller banks, these credit unions, these community lenders, they're the ones that have the relationships with the small business owner. And so we wanted to be sure that there was a set aside, particularly for the smaller business, for the rural business, for the minority, some people who are unbanked or underbanked, but they've been in the community a long time, that they had the resources. So I'm very, very proud about that. And I just was informed that since we don't have Joe, I have a couple members of my legislative team. Grant Dubler's Grant's my legislative director in Washington. He runs my entire legislative shop. We have Alejandro on the line. Alejandro is my expert on the Small Business Committee. So if there are some very particular questions that Joe might have answered, and I maybe don't know the answer because he's the one processing it, perhaps Grant, I'll call on them to answer, or we may have to kick that over to Joe if he speaks to you later.
Okay, terrific. Senator, thank you for your efforts in trying to include 501c6 organizations like Chambers of Commerce in the CARES Act funding. Can you explain why they may have been excluded in the past and what chance there is to get them included going forward?
Well, I think that I have a list here. Not being a tax attorney or having gone to law school, there's well over 25 different types of 501c corporations.
Mhm.
And so what happened was that quickly we knew that, like I said, the virus, everything happened so quickly, so fast, so furiously. The first few tranches of money, the first package we passed was just get that money to healthcare, testing, PPP, the ventilators, like respond, boots on the ground. The second bill was to try to help workers get that unemployment, get the stimulus check. The third bill and the 3.5 that we just passed was to try to fill in those holes. We didn't have quite enough time. The virus hit our communities faster than we could analyze the impact. And so I don't think that anything was particularly overlooked. We knew we wanted to take care of philanthropy and houses of worship. And now that we more broadly see the other types of the 501c corporations, we realize that there's others to protect in there too. So we're going to move forward with that. We just signed on to a letter with that, so you can be eligible for PPP. And this is happening across the country to every senator, every congressional district. So
Yes.
I think in the legislation, there'll either be guidance coming from the SBA before that, or will be some legislative fixes.
Terrific. Thank you. And thank you for support for chambers of commerce and other 501c6 organizations. The next question. Do you think an area like Washoe County and some of the rural counties can achieve a compromise somewhere between Las Vegas mayor's determination to see Vegas open quickly and the governor's more conservative approach to opening up businesses?
Well, you know, Nevada, I don't have to tell you, because, like I said earlier, because of our footprint, we're one of the states hit hardest. But I believe we have to balance lives and livelihoods. So we have to take that measured approach. And so the good thing about the governor, he has a lot of task force, he's been working really hard, is that we have 17 counties here in Nevada. Not all of them are the same as Clark County. So you have some of our smaller, Esmeralda, White Pine County, et cetera. They have a different kind of footprint about what they can do, how they can open. They're not Las Vegas. They might be able to open in different ways. Reno, Sparks, Washoe, Carson City. So it's going to be different for each of our areas. And I think that analysis is important, and how we take that measured approach. And one of the reasons that I will say that we have to take a measured approach, and I think this is a good way to think of it. If you were feeling ill and the doctor said, here's 10 pills, take them and I hope you're better. And now you have a reaction. Does the doctor know which pill gave it to you? No. So what the doctor will do is try pill 1, pill 2, and then, oh my gosh, pill 3 gave you the reaction. They'll take you off pill 3. So in that same way, if we have a measured approach, we can adapt and adjust the way that we need to protect our families. And I think that measured approach, working with our health departments, is the best way to go. It's going to be different for each county. Governor's going to have to work with our counties, our mayors in those areas, and determine what works best. There isn't a one size fits all, I think, and we're just going to have to wiggle through this. We're in uncharted territory, but
Sure.
I think we're going to get okay.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that, because I think we are looking at a somewhat different approach in Washoe County as maybe compared to Elko or even compared to Las Vegas. So
Right.
Thank you for that distinction. Next question. What are your thoughts about upcoming primaries and elections being conducted by mail only?
Well, I can tell you that I really believe that our elections have to be secure, safe, and accessible. And so I thought that before coronavirus, and certainly now the safety takes on a little bit of a different meaning, because now it's not just the safe, secure, and accessible meaning from hackers or any of those things. Now it means protecting you from a deadly illness potentially. So I think that we have to do everything possible, because I believe that our vote, the right for each person to vote, have their voice heard, it is unique and special here in the United States. Countries around the world look to us as a beacon that we have these free, fair, and open elections. And so I want to make them as accessible to everyone that we can. And right now, it may not be safe to have, a lot of our poll workers are often retired. They can't sit there being exposed to people. So I want to be sure that we can just respond in a way where your vote counts, every vote counts. We can trust the mail and trust the ballots. I believe we can trust Nevadans and bring that in the way. And I think it's a smart thing to do right now.
Well, we're certainly hoping that everybody who can vote will vote. We know how important the primaries are and future elections. So we're urging everyone who can get a stamp on that, or whether it's free postage, can get their mail carrier to deliver their vote. Thank you. Next question. Are you concerned about the closure of all educational institutions and moving all students to their next grade level, having missed so much schooling?
Oh my goodness, this crisis is highlighting the educational divide, the digital divide. We have communities across Nevada that don't have access to broadband. We have communities that are underserved, that don't have a laptop, don't have an iPad, like I said, don't have broadband, don't have service. So the disparity in our educational system has really been laid bare. Senator Cortez Masto and I were actually trying to call on leaders McConnell and Schumer to request a long-term solution. We have that Securing Rural Schools and Community Self-Determination Act that's going to provide assistance, and for us, particularly in our rural counties that rely on federal funds that really may not have good quality teleeducation. So what we have to do is be sure that we have teleeducation. This also is telehealth for other people in ways that you can't get to the doctor. We need to promote that. We have to have broadband. We have to address the digital divide. And we have to look at ways that all of our students can succeed. This is extremely difficult because each family, some parents may be better teachers than others. I have a friend who has junior high kids. Junior high, they typically don't want to listen to their parents about anything, and so they're going to school, but they're missing their friends, and it's definitely challenging. We may have to do some remedial work in the beginning of next school year to catch kids back up on what they may have missed out. Maybe we do some things, summer instruction, so that stays going, and we continue to supplement, but I'll leave that to the school districts to think about, but I do think we're going to have to do some extra supplementing to make sure that they don't forget what they've learned this year. And
right. Well, thank you. Senator, 75% of our 2,000 members are small businesses, and 80% of them are closed for an indefinite period of time. What words of support can you offer to them?
Well, I do believe that we are going to weather this storm. I think we have to think in the long term. I know myself, I am so happy. There were only 12 or 13 Democrats on the president's committee to reopen and recover America. I was so honored to be able to do that because I can really bring Nevada's voice with that, with all of our stakeholders. I can tell you that Joe Amato, he's not on the call, he's doing everything he can for the SBA. We're going to do everything we can legislatively. We've helped hundreds, over 300-400 businesses already just with PPP, not to mention the other things that we're doing. And I think that we will find that way to protect our lives and our livelihoods. There really isn't a choice. It's new territory. We're going to have to inch back through and back slowly, but I know in Washington, I'm going to fight to provide the support that Nevadans need to grow and thrive, that Nevada needs to succeed. And we're just going to get through this collaboratively, at least here in Nevada, and together. And I'm going to do everything I can in Washington to be sure that we can make all that happen. Just like today, getting the gaming restriction removed. I'm very, very proud of that.
Another follow-up question regarding the accomplishment today relative to small gaming institutions. There is a question regarding the fact they are now eligible for funding, but that does not mean they can reopen their the gaming portion of their business. Is that correct?
It is my understanding that they are open to, they're open for funding fully through the PPP program, Paycheck Protection Program. I'm not aware that they can't reopen their gaming. That may have something to do with the governor's restriction on reopening. I know that the governor and this is where I'm going to defer to him and some of his task force. I can tell you, I've been on the line with many casino operators, large and small, throughout the state. They're trying to craft some overall plans about how they clean equipment, how they think about their recirculated air, the air conditioning, how they reopen their restaurants, and how they do that. They're working together on what they think are best practices and how they might do that. So it's not my understanding that they're restricted in reopening. I can see if Alejandro or Grant, if you're on, if you want to unmute yourself, if you believe that's true. But I think that it's more just having the plan of how we open to keep people safe.
Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Senator. This is Grant Dougler, the Senator's Legislative Director in DC. Yes, the governor's restriction, of course, continues to apply, and that's a state law issue. But in terms of PPP, that funding, which you can get for up to 2.5 times payroll, can be used for your payroll expenses so that you can continue having your workers receiving their wages, their salary. But you can also use that, even though that's the primary intention, you can use it for rent and other expenses as well to keep businesses afloat in the meantime. And this is a brand new provision for small business gaming entities. The 7A loan program that has existed has not allowed small business gaming entities, and PPP initially said if you derive more than 1/3 of your revenue, later 1/2 from gaming, you couldn't access the new program. And so we're really thrilled about this new thing. And so during the time that, for public health reasons, casinos aren't able to open, and not just casinos, of course, we're talking about any restaurants, bars, others, gaming equipment manufacturers who derive their revenue from gaming, they can get that money to get by over a period of time. And part of that is forgivable as well if you keep your employees on staff. And so if you maintain the same number of employees after a period of time, you can get some of that forgiven too. So that is a program that's eligible, but it is true, the governor's executive order continues to apply across the board for anything that has been deemed a non-essential business.
Well, thanks for that clarification, because it was great news this morning, but then our phones were flooded with people thinking that small casinos could reopen, when in fact, the governor has directive limits gatherings of 10 or more. So the assumption was that the funding is available for retaining employees, or certainly for some of the overhead costs, but that there would not be a reopening of organizations such as Dottie's or various small casinos, or even those restaurants that have gaming apparatus there, that they could not reopen for that purpose, but they could in fact now be eligible for the PPP funding.
I think that I just got a message that Joe, are you on the line with us now?
I don't think he's on the line, Senator.
We thought he might have found a way to get in, but that's fine. Go ahead.
Can you be on the line now? Can you hear me?
Great. Yes. Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
On the line.
I'm sorry. I actually got my times mixed up today, and I'm just finished at an event in Las Vegas for the Chinese community. Just donated 120,000 N95 masks to the hospital community and the nursing home community. So I was at this event and didn't realize this call was going on at 11, not at 2. I thought it was at 2 o'clock, so I apologize.
No problem.
Okay.
No,
where can I fit in?
Right? Sometimes I have to think which side of the country am I on, depending, because I work in both time zones.
Yes, and that was my problem. I was in the wrong time zone.
So Joe, we've been talking about the great news this morning that small casino operators, those that derive up to 30% of their revenue from gaming can in fact be eligible to apply for the PPP program. However, there have been questions regarding the fact that they may be eligible for funding, but that does not necessarily mean they can open their doors for gaming. Can you clarify that?
Okay, yes, it was amazing. I was actually on a webinar with Congresswoman Titus this morning when this whole situation came up, and I was actually reading the CFR while she was reading, she was giving us information as well. At this point, it is very similar to the restaurants. They're still going to be subject to closure, but at the same time, PPP funding is going to be available to all gaming facilities that fit within the normal SBA requirements, 500 employees or less, and per location. So yes, any gaming company that has, or any business that has gaming as part of their operation, they now will be eligible, but they'll still be subject to the normal SBA parameters. The other situation, as far as whether they're open or closed, I mean, I'm dealing with, if not hundreds, 1,000 restaurants across the state that basically are limited. They're bringing back their employees with PPP, but they may have to sit idle or on standby for the first couple of weeks until they're able to, pass by phase 1, phase 2, whatever the situation may be as far as opening. So they can still apply for PPP funding, although they will not, even though they will not be allowed to be open, and hopefully opening happens sooner than later. So hopefully that answers the question.
It did. Thank you, Joe. I have another question for you now that you are on the line. What's the next big challenge small businesses will face as they try to secure PP funding? Many of them were in the queue before. There are new ones that are going to jump on the bandwagon now that this tranche of funding has been approved. Can you tell me what challenges you think they'll face?
Well, again, one of the biggest problems is most applicants are facing is just finding the lenders that are basically taking applications at this point. We are doing the best we can in the state of Nevada to get information out to people that are still looking for lenders. We had an amazing first round. Two of our largest banks as far as funding were Meadows Bank and Nevada State Bank. Between the two of them, they were responsible for close to over 2,000 SBA applications, PPP applications being processed for an enormous amount of money. I think almost $350 million, close to $400 million of the $2 billion in PPP funding that was approved. So, so they were our leaders as far as the state was concerned. We also now have, and we're putting information out there, that there are entities like Cabbage, PayPal, and On Deck that are online fintech companies that are taking applications from across the state from businesses that cannot find lenders. So the biggest problem for the applicants right now are just finding lenders that haven't been completely absorbed, aren't at full capacity as far as their lending ability. Where the community banks, the sub-regionals, and the regional banks really took the lead in the first round, a lot of them are full absorption where they can't lend much or they can't lend much more. And the applications are limited in the second round of PPP funding. But we're doing everything we can. I'm talking to lenders every day to finding out if they're ready to take applications. I'm taking between 400 to 500 emails and phone calls a day, and about 60% of them are, where can I get SBA, where can I get PPP funding? Where can I put my application in? So that's where we're sort of at a crossroads right now.
Joe, one more question, Senator, if you don't mind, now that Joe is on the line. A lot of our members are small businesses and they're very excited to have access to Joe as often as possible. Joe, it's interesting that some businesses would prefer to receive their PPP funding a bit later because they are non-essential and cannot rehire their employees who are now furloughed, doing really nothing before they can reopen. If they don't apply for payroll protection now, can they apply later when they have an opportunity to rehire those individuals?
Well, the way the rules are written, the way the law was written, it's pretty explicit. The program runs through June 30th. We basically absorbed the first $349 billion in 14 days. And for those that aren't realize this, in 14 days, we basically approved and are in the process of funding $349 billion in PPP loans, or PPP funding, I like to call them. And for all intents and purposes, that is as much lending as the SBA has done in the last 14 years. So it's insane, the just amount. Now, the problem with people delaying is, if we absorb 349 billion in 14 days, I would imagine we're going to absorb 300 billion in some time between 7 to 10, maybe 14 days. If they wait too long, because I understand the mathematics behind it, which is contrary to the rule, but if they do wait, the funding may not be there. So what I've been counseling many businesses to do is, at the end of the day, in order to get the 100% forgiveness, you have to have the employee count, matching the employee count on your application from day one that you receive, after day one after you receive your funding. There are a lot of companies that opted to have their employees, since their businesses are closed, to sort of be on standby for maybe the first, second, third week of the PPP funding, but at least they have the funding. They're paying their people. They're getting them off of unemployment. It is a situation that may not be ideal, but hopefully by the 4th, 5th, 6th through the 8th week, business is coming back, revenues are coming back. They're going to be able to supplement what the PPP is giving them as far as 8 weeks of payroll coverage. So, I would say very eagerly, I would not delay your application too long, because there may not be funding if you do, although it's, the program goes to June 30th. I'm not sure if there's going to be a PPP 3, but, for those companies that want to wait because they don't think they can use the money immediately and they don't want to have their employees being paid for doing nothing, they may lose the opportunity of getting PPP funding at all. And that's just the honest truth.
And Joe, one last point of clarification. The 8 weeks begins when the money hits your bank. Is that true?
When the money hits your bank, it's, in order to get 100% forgiveness, you have to have the same number of employees that's on your application from day 1, week 1 to day 7, week 8. And yes, you have to have them on staff. If for some reason you have 80% or 50%, it doesn't mean you lose all forgiveness. You'll only get a forgiveness equal to the amount of employees that you have on staff. So, it's not a complete loss. And some people have actually said, that's okay. I don't mind paying half of it off, in 2 years, after the businesses are fully operational. But yes, that is the way it works.
Thank you for that clarification. Senator, can you wrap up by discussing again, and I can't emphasize enough how grateful we are for your support and your connection to small businesses, knowing that the fair percentage of businesses throughout Nevada, whether it's a rural area, Vegas, or Washoe County, are in fact small businesses by definition. I'd love to have you wrap up on regarding how much you're doing back in Washington and from home, but definitely in Washington as well, how much you're doing to support the efforts of small businesses that provide all the goods and services we've come to rely upon.
Well, thank you for that. And I appreciate everything that you do every single day. But I can tell you that my team and I, we're here to serve you. My team is your team. Like I said earlier, you go to rosen.senate.gov. There's a small business portal there. There's frequently asked questions. There are links to and things. We're working with Joe constantly. Everything that we're doing, we're putting it up there. We're being sure you have the most up-to-date information. My teams here in Nevada are working to, we're trying to have webinars and workshops to bring people together here on the ground to try to instruct them through things. We're going to try to see how that works, continue that in any teleconferencing or teletown hall way that we need to as we move through, not just implementing the CARES Act, but the 3.5 part of the CARES Act and any subsequent legislation or guidance that we have. So we're going to continue to try to provide that in this format as well as our website. I know at least for PPP, we've helped nearly over 350 businesses just on that. My office, all of my 3 offices, like I said a few weeks ago, had about 14,000 emails. We're going through them, we're responding, we're calling. Senator Cortez Masto and I are every day doing as many teleconferences and telephone town halls as we can with stakeholders across the state. My office in Washington, working remotely with all the committees. This is where being on that White House task force is going to really allow me to take the information from stakeholders across Nevada, elected officials, business leaders, and the like, and put together that Nevada blueprint for recovery for our success. So I'm very pleased on that. And through my small business committee work, we have our foot in the door on future legislation and that negotiation. So we are all working from home, whether it's here in, I live in Henderson, whether it's in Henderson or whether it's in Washington. We're doing everything we can. We haven't stopped for a second. I think I'm actually working more hours now because I'm not spending any time on a plane. So those 10 hours, 12 hours a week I spend on the airplane, I can actually connect with everyone, connect with all of you. So I thank you. I look forward to hearing from all of you. We'll continue to do these as we get more information. I'm so happy to do this, and I hope that soon I'll be able to travel and at least up north and come out and see everyone, be able to sit in some form or fashion around the table and have a good conversation here.
Senator Rosen, thank you for taking your time today on behalf of all the members of the Reno-Sparks Chamber of Commerce. We very much appreciate your time. And Joe, thank you for the frequent times we've had you on the phone. I'm convinced your face is going to appear on cereal boxes at some point. Everyone in the state now knows your name. We have a lot of other questions. We'll do our best to respond to those by email. And Senator Rosen and Joe, we look forward to having you back on again. There just are questions that appear every single day, and the degree to which we can provide as much information, specific information, accurate information to our chamber members, that's our clear intent. So thank you both, and thank you for all our members who are on this Zoom call today. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. Bye.